I heard you making this point on trigonometry, which I love too, that it's the same thing with Lincoln. If you can't have Lincoln, you can have no one. It's all tied together.
Absolutely. I'd go further, as I say in the book. It's absolutely everybody in American history, as it is absolutely everybody in British history. You know, when I grew up, the main heroes we had politically were Lord Nelson, the Admiral of the Fleet, who defeated the French. We had Winston Churchill, because he stood alone against Nazi Germany, and certainly if he hadn't been prime minister at that point, then it's almost certain that the Nazis would have been up against an appeasing prime minister or somebody not willing to stand up to Nazism, and that Europe, at the very least, would have been flooded over by the Nazis successfully. He was, in my life, also and for all people, I think, who are British, as well as many Americans, he was the single figure who showed something about the importance of grit and determination, even standing alone against the worst of enemies. He was the epitome of bravery. And of course, there was something more personal in it, which is that for the generation that's now pretty much died out, he was the person who rallied them, not just to fight for their country, but to put up with night after night of bombardment. You know, my grandparents told me this. You know, my parents' generation grew up under the shadow of this extraordinary man, because we knew that if it hadn't have been for him, we would have been speaking German, and much more. So something very extraordinary happened in Britain in recent years, which was every one of our heroes, but particularly Winston Churchill, the radical left activists and others, the race hucksters and others came for. You know, they accused him of all sorts of crimes, many of which are totally fictional. Noam Chomsky, one of the great heroes of the left, claimed that Churchill had gassed the Kurds in the 19-teens. He'd done no such thing. Chomsky, as ever, was sloppy and thought that what the gas referred to was mustard gas, when it was in fact tear gas of the kind that the British police and others still use on civilian populations in extremis. So anyway, they tore down Churchill. They said he was a racist. They said he was a colonialist and much more. And I noticed that happening in Britain, this horrible, remorseless process whereby all of our heroes were looked at in this light. And then, of course, I saw, the closer I looked, at exactly the same thing, and much worse was happening in America. You know, that you could say there was a time a few generations back where Americans learned about the founding fathers and didn't know much about the slavery that went on in their time and the fact that they owned slaves. You could say that was the case generations ago. It hasn't been the case for generations. A more rounded picture of American history has been on the curricula for a very long time. But now we've gone to a different place. What do people know in America now about Thomas Jefferson if they've gone to American schools, apart from the fact that he owned slaves? You know, what do they know about Washington apart from what they've been told in the same light? So the founding fathers all came into it. Obviously, Christopher Columbus has come into it for years. And I think that the current settlement, as far as I can see, in American schooling and education, is that it would have been better if Christopher Columbus had never set out and America had never been found by him. I think that's the current state of play.
Yeah.
Either he should have taken a left and avoided America, or he should have left things to the natives. And if so, America would be much better off in the current era, and there'd be much more Native Americans, and everything would be so much better. Or he could have gone home, of course. This is the other thing that seems to have been an option for Columbus. He could have gone home and said, look, I've discovered this entirely new world, but there's no promise there, really. A lot of real estate opportunity, but not really. Best we just forget about it and pretend it isn't there. I mean, they've already done this with Columbus, and they've made him into this sort of monstrous figure. They did it with the founding fathers. They've done it literally in recent years with the founding date of America, where the New York Times has taken it upon itself to appoint a total ignoramus non-historian, Nicole Hannah-Jones, to come up with a new version of American history, which by its own definition and albeit they lied about it afterwards and pretended that this wasn't their definition and actually rewrote silently and re-edited the copy that they had published. But they said originally their whole aim was to reframe the founding date of America so that in actual fact America was founded in 1619 because that's when the first slaves came into America. So in other words, America was born in sin, has always been mired in sin. And just in case you didn't get the memo, we are going to reframe the date of the American founding to make sure that you're totally guilt-ridden forever. But then you come up further to date, you pass the founding fathers, you get to both sides in the Civil War. There was a time when there were people who were more critical of people on the South, but now it's equally critical of people on the North and the South sides. And even Abraham Lincoln, even the people who freed the slaves, now have their statues torn down in American cities. And if the mob doesn't get to them first, as they did say in Portland when I was there, the Lincoln statues are now taken down preemptively by councils, worried that the mob will get to them next. We see Thomas Jefferson's statue boxed up and wheeled out of the back of the New York City council chamber, wheeled out the back door in a crate because, as one of the council members said in New York, Thomas Jefferson no longer represents our values. You get Teddy Roosevelt with the same treatment. You get everyone put through the same treatment. Why? So that America has no heroes left, just like Britain. No heroes, no one to look up to, nothing good in the past. These people have got away with this for years, and it has to stop. It is totally unfair. It is totally ahistorical. It ignores not just the truth about the great figures of the American past, like the British past, but it also ignores what the rest of the world was doing. You know, the absolutely maddening thing about the illiteracy of the Robin DiAngelos and Ibram X. Kendis and Hannah Nicole Jones, the absolute madness of what they have done is that they have persuaded American society not just that American history is just totally rotten and that people today as a result are rotten and have to just keep on feeling guilt about themselves, even though, I mean, I never did anything with colonialism. I never did anything with slavery. Neither did you, nor did anyone listening. Nobody should have any guilt about it who's alive because we didn't do anything about it. But we're told we've always got to have that guilt. And then, of course, you have this monstrous misrepresentation based on the fact that the people doing this misrepresentation never, ever tell anyone what the rest of the world was doing. You know, the founding fathers didn't come up with slavery and decide to institute it in America. Every damn country in the world, every society was doing slavery at the time. The remarkable thing about the Western world is that Britain first and then everyone else after actually abolished the trade that every civilization in history has involved itself in. You know, do 1 in a million Americans know that? The 1 in a million Americans know that horrific and huge as the transatlantic slave trade was, that there was a much bigger slave trade at the same time that took Africans east to Arabia, and that the Arabs took even more people, roughly 18 million people they stole from Africa, sold into slavery. Why do we not know about the Arab slave trade? For one reason among others, which is that unlike the Americans, the Arabs castrated every black male so that there could never be another generation of black Africans in the Arabian Peninsula. Now, does 1 in 10 million Americans know this? I very much doubt it. We have been force-fed not only a false version of our own past, but a totally false version of the rest of the world's past. So we're told and invited, and then told to think appallingly of ourselves. But we don't have to. We don't have to at all.
It's incredible. You go through some of the examples so methodically to put the point to it. They lie about the individual heroes to tear them down or reduce them to their worst quote with total ignorance of the rest of their life or willful blindness to the rest of their life. And they do the same countrywide to Great Britain, to America, to the West. And if you look at the specifics, it really brings the point home that you've done it here. And in the chapter on Churchill, you do it there as well. Even at Churchill College, even at a college named for Winston Churchill. You write about this panel. It made news when it happened that got together to take a look at his true legacy. And it devolved to the point where in the book you point the following out. There were no depths to which the participants would not sink. At one point, one of the participants started to snark at Churchill for being a coward. Quote, I mean, was it Churchill out there fighting the war? Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't. I'm pretty sure he was at home. And you go on to write, you must wonder how hostile somebody must be to ask why a prime minister who, as a young man, saw action on 4 continents and volunteered to fight in World War I should, in his 60s, have fought on the front line of the conflict like some medieval warlord. Inflation is out of control, and one area we see it more than ever is in the grocery store. Even though grocery prices feel like they have doubled, Good Ranchers prices have stayed low and affordable. Once you subscribe, your price never goes up. Your best price is locked in for life. They sell 100% American meat, and they deliver it to your door for a great price. The problem with all that grass-fed beef in stores and online, 85% of it is imported. You don't know where it's coming from. You shop Good Ranchers, you buy American for all your beef, chicken, and seafood needs. Their beef is prime and upper choice, the 2 highest grades possible. They sell amazing steaks like ribeyes, T-bones, New York strips, and more, and you can get the marinated kind, so they take all the effort out of it for you. It's super easy. You get steakhouse quality at home with Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers takes the guesswork out of the meat aisle. Having them in your fridge makes mealtime easy, convenient, and less stressful. Truly, you don't even have to think about what you're having. Just grab something from the freezer, cook it up, done. Plus, their packaging makes it easy to cook what you want and save the rest. Their animals are ethically raised, sustainably sourced. They do things the right way, and it shows in every box. Go to goodranchers.com/Megyn for $30 off and free express shipping. goodranchers.com/MEGYN. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. And if you don't happen to be the person who buys the meat in your house, please tell the person who does to check out Good Ranchers. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.